So hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lucy and in today's video we're talking all things historical romance. So before we get cracking on the video, if you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Lucy and I make videos all about all things bookish. And if you're not familiar with my reading tastes, I adore historical fiction and historical romance. I would say historical romance is like the perfect blend of my two favourite genres, historical fiction and of course romance. So I had to make this video, I just had to. So the first recommendation is going to be a crowd pleaser because a lot of people who aren't traditionally historical romance fans will have been introduced to the series recently because it was a Netflix phenomenon, let's just say that, like #1 on Netflix across the world basically. And it is the Bridgetons series by Julia Quinn. I thought I would start with the Bridgetons series because a lot of people are recently watching the TV series on Netflix, of which, can I just say, they have done an incredible job adapting that from the book series. The book series is one of my all-time favourites now, and I wanted to read the books before I watched the Netflix show. And honestly, I think you could do it either way. Like, as someone who did read the books first, I must say it feels like a very different thing, the book series compared to the TV show. And the reason why I'd recommend the Bridgerton series as an excellent place to start on historical romance is because it basically sets up the formula of traditional historical romance, where usually the author will write about a big family or a big friend group, and each novel in that series will take a different character by turn and basically gives them a love story. So the Bridgertons is a perfect model of this, where there's this big family called the Bridgetons. There are 8 siblings. And the series goes through each of the Bridgetons' romances. It starts with Daphne, who is the first girl, and it basically goes through all 8 of the siblings and gives them their happy ever after. So I particularly thought the series gets stronger as it goes on. You can tell that Julia Quinn really starts to know her characters, and that is one thing that I absolutely love about the series. The characters are just brilliant, and the romance is even better. So the first book to start with is The Duke and I think this sets up the kind of a forced / arranged marriage trope perfectly. I'm a big fan of a marriage of convenience or forced marriage trope, in the sense of, you know, 2 people find each other very, very attractive, they have great banter, and they're caught in a very compromising circumstance, which means they have to get married. Like, I love that trope. I love tropes which force 2 people together and then they slowly develop affection for each other and love for each other. And that is what The Duke and I basically does. It features Daphne Bridgerton and Simon Bassett, who's the Duke of Hastings. So of course we have the Duke, who plays such a big part in the Netflix show. But Julia Quinn's writing style is very, very accessible and also very, very funny, very, very sly, very, very kind of like sarcastic as well. I absolutely love the Bridgerton series. So guys, that was my first recommendation, the Bridgertons. If you have already read the Bridgertons and you are a well-seasoned historical romance fan, then hopefully I have some kind of more obscure recommendations for you later on in this video. So the second series / books I would recommend that you read if you're looking to get into historical romance is my favourite all-time historical romance author, and that is Lisa Kleypas. Lisa Kleypas has several different series that are all kind of connected, like characters will pop up in other series. Usually I would say start with the Wallflower series, which is her first kind of proper series that takes a friendship group in turn, where they all find their happily ever afters. They are all wallflowers, which is kind of a, you know, Regency term for a girl who always hangs at the back of a ballroom, never getting asked to dance. However, the series that I recommend to you, and is my favourite Lisa Kleypas series, is the Raveel series. So the Ravels are a family, and they're quite a wealthy family, they're quite well to do, and the Raveel series basically takes each of the Ravels in turn and, as I said, gives them their happy ending. The first novel is called Cold-Hearted Rake, and this is basically about a man who inherits a title and a big kind of house, and he goes to the house and finds that its previous owners are still living there, namely the widow of the man who died and kind of left the estate and the house and the title to him. And the Ravels family are just the most adorable ragtag bunch. You learn to love them all. All of them have very strong personalities, all of them are hilarious, and all of their books in the Raveel series are just 10 out of 10. Like, I am obsessed with this series so much. And just like the kind of historical romance tradition with Julia Quinn, where each book takes a different sibling or different family member or different friendship group in turn, the Raveel does the very same thing, and each novel is 10 out of 10 amazing. Like, every single novel just delivers for me. And the reason why I would say the Raveel series and Lisa Kleypas's stories are my all-time favorite historical romances is because the romance is so exquisite, the banter is hilarious. Like, Lisa Kleypas's novels are so funny. But what I really love is the historical detail. A lot of these novels are interwoven with a historical event that will have happened at the time. So in the Raveel series, for example, there is a kind of like historical plotline all about late 19th century agriculture. Like, you wouldn't have guessed it, but there's all these historical kind of details woven in. And that's why I think Lisa Kleypas kind of shines above the rest of the historical romance authors, in my humble opinion. And not only is there sizzling romance, but there is historical detail and really interesting, fascinating things that go on in these novels that make it multi-layered. It's not just on the surface historical romance, it is historical romance, you know what I mean? Also, can we just talk about the romance? The sexy scenes are like, whew, they're up there, let me just tell you that. And I really do think Lisa Kleypas is just 10 out of 10. I love her books. Okay, so on to a different style of historical romance. And I have a physical copy here. It is The Song of Achilles, and this is by Madeline Miller. So I debated putting this in here because I didn't know if I could class this as like a historical romance, but this is based on the Greek myth of Achilles and Patroclus. So I did kind of wrestle whether or not that it really applied to the historical romance genre, but I think it does because it's set during a specific time period, you know, ancient Greece, set around the Greek myth of Achilles, as I said, and it is narrated, like, it's from Patroclus's point of view. And if you don't know a lot about Achilles and Patroclus, they have basically a fabled love story. It is a male-male love story, and their romance is heartbreaking, emotional, passionate, incredible. Like, oh guys, this book doesn't just serve as a historical romance book. This is just a 10 out of 10 incredible book that you all must read. One of my favorites of all time. But it also is an excellent historical romance, and especially an excellent queer love story as well, because I think often queer love stories in historical novels are completely overlooked, and I would love to read more queer historical novels, so leave your recommendations in the comments below. And The Song of Achilles is obviously set around Achilles and the legend that is Achilles, but also I think it looks at the softer elements of the myth around him, and it draws more attention to Patroclus, who is his lover, and their relationship is so beautiful in this book. So I really would recommend you read The Song of Achilles for an excellent historical romance, but also just a generally great historical novel or a mythological retelling, whatever you'd like to call this. I think it can apply to both, to be honest. So I love this book. Okay, so I definitely feature the next author in my historical fiction recommendations video, but all of her novels contain a love story. So this is why I wanted to include this specific book and this specific series. So the series I'm going to recommend and the specific book I'm recommending in this video is the Cousins War series by Philippa Gregory. This is The Kingmaker's Daughter, and this is all set around the Wars of the Roses. So this specific book, The Kingmaker's Daughter, is the, I want to say it's like the third or fourth in the Cousins War series, but it focuses on Anne Neville, who famously married Richard III, who is a very, oh god, like very hotly debated king, and recently kind of came back into the spotlight when his bones were found in a car park in Leicester. I'm a big Ricardian, like I love reading about Richard III. I think he was grossly misinterpreted, but anyway, this is the wrong video for that. Anyway, the thing that I think Philippa Gregory does great is that her novels bring humanity to these kings and queens of Plantagenet England. So the reason why I picked this one out in particular is because I adore Anne Neville and Richard III's romance in this book, The Kingmaker's Daughter. It is packed full of politics, deception, betrayal, intrigue, but at the heart is this amazing love story, and I absolutely loved it. Honestly, this book was everything. And I also really loved The White Princess in this series, which follows Elizabeth of York and her marriage to Henry VII. So if you're interested in kings and queens and monarchs, then I really would recommend reading this series. So the next book is one that I read years ago, and it still really sticks with me to this day. I would say this is a novel I've not heard anyone talk about, definitely not on BookTube, definitely not on Twitter or anything like that. Like, this is quite an old novel. It was published a few years back. It is called Rebel Heiress by Fiona Mountain. And this book focuses on a real life woman called Eleanor Goodrick. And the book Rebel Heiress is basically centered around the English Civil Wars. So the English Civil Wars are something I don't really know loads about. I know enough in terms of studying English Civil War poetry at university, but I don't know loads about it. And this novel really gave me the historical detail I wanted, but also the romance. And there is an incredible romance in this book. And Eleanor, our main character, who is a real person from history, is basically really interested in natural sciences and butterflies in particular. So she has her own money. She has basically been left estates by her family, I believe. And so she is kind of a woman who has her own authority, has her own money, and she is passionate about natural sciences and about butterflies specifically. So it kind of makes this amazing backdrop, this incredible strong woman who falls in love, and the romance is 10 out of 10. If you're looking for a more traditional historical romance, I would recommend Rebel Heiress. And I think this is more down the Philippa Gregory vein than the Julia Quinn or the Lisa Kleypas. So this is just another one for you guys who like more of the history in your historical romance. This will definitely deliver. And finally, we're going back into the vein of traditional historical romance with Tessa Dare. Tessa Dare is probably my second favourite historical romance author ever, second to Lisa Kleypas. Oh, Tessa Dare's books, where do I even start? Like, she is just incredible. And she definitely plays into the more traditional romance tropes in terms of getting a group of characters and telling each of their love stories one by one in each book. So the series that I love the most is the Girl Meets Duke series, which kicks off with The Duchess Deal, which I'm sure you might have heard of. And this series is honestly incredible. Not only is it funny, full of really witty, brilliant women, but the romance is so swoon-worthy, and oh god, I just love her book so, so much. So the first book in the series, which is called The Duchess Deal, is basically a play on Beauty and the Beast. It is about a seamstress who meets this scarred war hero who is very, very grumpy and very, very miserable and basically keeps himself to himself. But in order to basically maintain his estate, he has to marry, and he decides to marry our main character, the seamstress, who is obviously lower in class than him. And they basically create this deal where he looks after her and she has to welcome him into her bed every night, but they won't fall in love and they won't kiss on the mouth or anything like that. So there's lots of like rules around their like marriage and everything like that, which makes it even more interesting because you know those rules are going to get broken. You know they're going to fall in love and it's going to be great. This was a lovely slow burn romance. It's passionate, the characters are amazing, and the sexy scenes are like super hot, so great. And I just love Tessa Dare's writing style. I think she is a brilliant, brilliant author, but also really funny. And I really love it when a book is just funny, but also romantic and swoon-worthy and makes you think. So I adore The Duchess Deal. The other books in the Girl Meets Duke series are also amazing. The Governess Game, which is the second book I think, is my all-time fave. It is so, so good. So I really would recommend Tessa Dare if you haven't already read her. So guys, we've come to the end of my historical romance recommendations. I really hope you've taken something away from this video. Even if it's just one recommendation and it's inspired you to read more historical romance, I really hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. So thank you so much for watching again, and if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you very, very soon with my next video, guys. Bye!